Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good day everyone. My name is Luqman Hazeem bin Abdullah. My Matric number is 2319907 and my lecturer in charge for this project video is Prof.Dr.Md.Mahmudul Hasan from the course Islamic Literature in Islam. Okay, today we're diving into the mind of one of the most influential thinkers of our time, which is Tariq Ramadan, a renowned Swiss scholar, philosopher, and author. Ramadan has spent his career exploring how Islam can engage with the challenges of the modern world. His insight break down barriers and inspire us to rethink not only our relationship with faith, but also our role in shaping a just and compassionate society. But how do we navigate the complexities of modern life while staying true to our values? How do we challenge misconceptions about our faith and fight for a more equitable world? Ramadan's work answers these questions, offering a vision of hope, reform, and the empowerment that is as relevant today as ever. In his book, What I Believe, published on 2009, Ramadan addresses some of these very issues. Today, we will focus on two key themes from the book that I found very realistic nowadays, which is the role and right of women in Islam and the principles of reform through the 7 Cs. These powerful ideas challenge us to think deeply about how we can create a fairer, more just society, one where compassion, integrity, and justice are at forefront of our action. So let's dive in and explore these transformative concepts together. The first chapter I have picked for this video is chapter 11, which is the issue of women. Let's begin with chapter 11, where Ramadan explores the role and right of women in Islam. This is one of the most debated and often misunderstood topics in both Western and Muslim societies. Ramadan takes on the subject directly, aiming to challenge the cultural distortion and misconception about women's place in Islam. Ramadan starts by emphasizing that Islam fully recognizes the spiritual and ethical equality of men and women. He rejects the idea that Islam has ever placed women in an inferior position to men. This equality is not a modern concept, it is a core value in Islam. However, he critiques patriarchal cultural practices that often marginalize women. These practices, he asserts, are not rooted in Islamic teachings, but rather a cultural tradition and misunderstanding of the religion. One of the Ramadan's key arguments is the importance of education in empowering women. He highlights that education is not just a right for women, but a necessity for their active participation in religious, social, and political life. He looks back at inspiring examples from Islamic history where women were even scholars, leaders, and some of them are even innovators, and insists that this tradition of female intellectual and social leadership is something and need to be revived. Ramadan also addresses the harmful cultural practices that continue to exist today, such as forced marriage, the restriction of women's mobility, and the denial of education. He makes it clear that these practices have no basis in Islam and are a distortion of the faith. To challenge these injustices, he calls for a renewed and more thoughtful understanding of the Quran that can lead to more practices. For Ramadan, the true transformation begins when both men and women come together to oppose these harmful practices. He stresses that the voice of women is essential for reform, and without their active involvement, true social and culture cannot change and happening. Women in Ramadan's vision are not just a passive subjects of reform, but an active agents of change. He calls on women to take on leadership roles, to become innovators, and to help shape a new vision for their communities. Women must be seen as the vital contributors to transformative power of Islam and the progress of society as a whole. With that being said, I have ended with one chapter I have chosen. And we're moving on to the chapter 15, which is about reform and the seven C's. Now, let's return to chapter 15, where Ramadan outlines his framework for reform centered on the seven C's. These principles provide a guide for Muslims to navigate the challenges of modern life while staying true to their faith. The seven C's offer a practical approach to reform, calling Muslims to act with integrity, creativity, and even compassion in every area of life. Let's break down of the seven C's, which I will explain in the next thing. For this first C, which is confident. The first principle in Ramadan's framework is confidence. Confidence in one's faith and identity is essential for meaningful engagement with the world. Without confidence, people may retreat from society or become more defensive, closing themselves off from the possibility of positive engagement. Ramadan emphasizes that confidence allows Muslims to interact with the world openly and with pride in their faith. This confidence is not about arrogance, but about a deep-seated belief that Islamic values can contribute to the betterment of society. And for the second C, which is consistency. Once confidence is established, the next principle is consistency. Ramadan argues that reform must be grounded in consistency. This means that Muslims must ensure their actions align with their values, values such as justice, honesty, and compassion. Ramadan stresses that consistency is not just about public actions, but about living these principles every day in all aspects of life. This consistency builds trust and integrity, and it is crucial foundation for any reform effort. The third C is contribution. Building on consistency, Ramadan introduces the idea of contribution. Reform cannot happen in a vacuum. Muslims must actively contribute to the betterment of society by engaging in areas like education, healthcare, politics, and perhaps social justice. Contribution is not limited to charity, but extends to participating in shaping of society in ethical, transformative ways. Ramadan emphasizes that every Muslim has a role to play in improving their community and fighting for justice. With that being said, we move on to the fourth C, which is creativity. Creativity is another key component of reform. Ramadan encourages Muslims to think creatively in addressing modern challenges while staying true to their Islamic values. Creativity means finding new solutions, thinking outside the box, and perhaps embracing innovations. Ramadan calls for Muslims to draw inspiration from the rich intellectual history of Islam, interpreting traditional knowledge to meet contemporary needs. Creativity is crucial in ensuring that reform is relevant and effective in today's world. With that being said, we move on to the fifth C, which is communication. Effective communication is essential for building trust and understanding. Ramadan emphasizes that reform requires open and honest dialogue, both within Muslim communities and with the wider world. Communication is not just about speaking, but also about listening, engaging with others in a way that fosters mutual respect. Through communication, Muslims can share their values and build connection that foster collaboration and understanding. Now we get to the second to the last of the C's, which is contest. Contest means in the book standing up against injustice. Ramadan urges Muslims to challenge corruption, inequality, and other forms of oppression. Contesting injustice is a core part of the reform process, whether it is within Muslim societies or on a global scale. Muslims must actively work to dismantle systems that perpetuate oppression and inequality. Contest is about courage, taking ethical stance even when it is difficult or unpopular to the community. And for the final C's, we have reached the final C, which is the compassion. Finally, compassion is the guiding force behind all of the other C's. Ramadan reminds us that while confidence, consistency, contribution, creativity, communication, and contest are all essential for the reform, it is compassion that ties everything together. Compassion is not just a feeling, but an active force that compels Muslims to act with kindness, empathy, and dignity toward others. It ensures that reform is driven by a commitment to human dignity and the well-being of others. Together, the seven C's offers a holistic approach to reform that they encourage Muslims to balance tradition with modernity, addressing contemporary issues while remain grounded in the ethical teaching of Islam. Reform is not just a political or social task, it is a deeply spiritual one, rooted in the desire to make the world a more just and compassionate place. With that being said, we have reached to the end of our video where I will conclude all the points I have said. As we reflect on these powerful ideas, Ramadan's message is clear. Reform starts with the individual, whether we are challenging misconception about women's rights or striving for social change through the seven C's. Each of us has a role to play in creating a more just society. To end with, I leave you with a powerful quote from the book that I got. We must not be afraid of for change. We must not be afraid of change, for change is the essence of life. But we must have the courage to change in a way that preserves what is noble and just. Just remind us that true reform requires not just the courage to act, but the wisdom to do so in alignment with our deepest values. Thank you for listening, and may we all be inspired to act with purpose and passion in service of justice, equality, and compassion.